right, we are live. We are live on SnoozeTube, aka YouTube, the greatest, the largest, the most important streaming platform on the planet. SnoozeTube, we are live. Just want to say to Google and YouTube, don't give me any copyright strikes or anything as I do this stream on YouTube. I mean, I have enough work on my plate. Half my time with YouTube is going through all the copyright strikes that I get, sometimes in 3 seconds in length. Literally 3-second portions of my stream are getting copyright strikes, and I have to go in there and I have to manage them. It takes a lot of time for independent streamers, independent content creators to deal with SnoozeTube. So it is a platform that can put you to sleep, but here we go. We're going to continue with the Lotus Eaters and the extradition of Julian Assange to the United States of America. And from what we are hearing now in the news cycle, he may be looking at 175 years. I don't know where they're getting that figure, because I don't know that he's been on trial yet in the U.S. I'm still trying to figure out where he is. Is he still in an embassy in the UK, or is he in a special prison in the UK? I believe they did move him to some prison in the UK, and he could be in the US already. They're making it very difficult to find anything about his whereabouts. They don't want him to know where he is. They don't want anyone to know. So that's another issue. But we're going to finish up with this video, and then I have a video from Jackson Hinkle. He has a show called The Dive, so we're going to do a little bit from that, and then finish up with the Julian Assange, and I'll move on to some other stories.
Anyway, it carries on. Nonetheless, many in the press feel as though Assange, journalist or not, acted in the interest of free speech and in line with common journalistic practice, which is, again, true. Telegraph lead writer, Philip Johnson argued soon after Patel's decision that the extradition should alarm anyone who wants to live in a free country. And it's nice to see some of our more establishment newspapers actually caring about freedom for once. Andrew Neil also argued in the Mail following the announcement that the decision has stakes for the future of a free press and its ability to undertake investigative journalism that embarrasses or shames the powers that be. He added that the extradition would chill investigative journalism across the globe and embolden and empower those who want to suppress its ability to reveal unpalatable facts.
Well, that's absolutely true, and it's true of the entire treatment of Assange over the last 10 years.
Absolutely, and we are going to get into that, and it is absolutely appalling. Like, if you need any more reasons to hate your government, particularly in the UK and US, because we're the ones mostly to blame, although Australia as well, they haven't really intervened to defend their citizens' rights. So,
well, I think Australia will. I mean, they definitely, Australian government definitely should have taken more of an active role in all of this, and we wouldn't have been in this situation. But I think once Assange, if he gets to the U.S., I mean, this is getting weird too. I mean, you can't find any information. It's possible that obviously the U.S. federal government, they don't want anyone covering this. So it's going to be difficult to get any kind of information. So that's also what I'm wondering about. If Assange does get onto U.S. soil, there's going to be a massive media blackout. There's going to be very difficult to find any kind of information. It's one of these stories they just want you to forget about. But we'll see. Gonna have to wait and figure out when Julian Assange is in the U.S. So I'm gonna do a little bit more here and then move on to the Hinkle video.
They're not exactly off the hook either. So to conclude this article here, It goes on to say, in addition, the charges against Assange in the US are being brought using the 1917 Espionage Act, essentially branding him a spy, which is obviously nonsense, and they know it. Tim Dawson, a national executive member of the UK's National Union of Journalists, told a rally in 2020, the legal devices being deployed to try and take him to the US are unprecedented and terrifying for anyone whose journalism touches on state security, defence or espionage. If Assange is sent here to start a prison sentence, that could be as long as 175 years, then no journalist is safe. And this 175 years figure has been verified, and it's been reported by multiple sources, and it's also incredibly absurd for what he's done.
Right.
Just for a reminder, let's look at...
Well, I mean, the 175 years is a whole fear factor thing. I mean, they're just going to stamp an absolutely insane amount of years. I mean, you've got homicidal maniacs and serial killers that don't get 175 years. It's a fear factor. It's completely insane.
What Ghislaine Maxwell, underage child sex trafficker, and 20 years compared to 175. I mean, says a lot about the powers that be, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it?
Your friends get the 20-year sentence, whereas...
And I wonder what the grooming gang perpetrators...
Oh, well, Maxwell is probably going to disappear. The whole apparatus, machine's going to wait for the right time. I would imagine she's, whatever you want to call it, Epstein or whatever. They can't have her. They can't have her around. At least be it known that she's alive and serving 20 years.
Oh, they're already out.
Yeah.
Goodness me, that's how short their sentences were. And 175 years for Assange.
It's so disproportionate, isn't it? You can just tell he's ruffled the wrong feathers.
Well, this is why the real divide is, as I say, state and subjects most of the time.
Yes, and it has got pretty bad so far. So here's an article from The Independent titled, Julian Assange strip searched and moved to bare cell on day extradition announced, wife says. And this has been reported by lots of others as well. And apparently the authorities say that this is for his own protection. From who?
Them.
Yeah. If anyone's a threat, it is.
Well, they're saying suicide watch. He's on suicide watch, this or that. So really anything can happen. I mean, obviously, U.S. federal government would like to have this all, shall we say, done with, without even having to deal to extradite him to the U.S. So this is really a difficult point in this whole story. That's why it's really important to find out if he's actually on U.S. soil or not, and where are they going to keep him? That's what I want to know.
Is the government's, right? And I don't think.
And he may not make it to the U.S. I mean, if they're already going on about suicide watch, it could be over by now. Who knows?
An empty cell is for his own protection, is it? So it's also worth mentioning, all the way back on the 7th of July 2021, Hugo wrote an article saying that a key witness against Julian Assange lied in his indictment. And reading from this is quite illuminating, because you really get a picture of what the intelligence agencies were up to try and get this guy. So I'm reading Hugo's words directly here. The Icelandic newspaper Stundin published a report on the 26th of June summarising an interview conducted with Sigurdur Igni Þórðarson. Terrible at pronouncing these sorts of things. A key witness in the indictment of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. According to Stundin, in the interview, Þórðarson had simply admitted to numerous crimes he had committed in Iceland, as well as to fabricating accusations against Assange. Despite Þórðarsson's history of criminal activity, including the sexual abuse of minors, his diagnosis of sociopathy, his claims have played an important role in keeping Assange in custody to this day.
Remember this guy. So he was basically a rotten criminal paedophile, by the sound of it.
I mean, he's about as monstrous as a human being can get.
Yeah, so someone who you could probably get on side in order to inform on someone who you didn't like. Possibly. So
there you have it. This is one of the most important things in the story. I mean, this Þórðarson guy. This is who they have as one of the main witnesses. against Assange. I mean, this is insane.
In return for a more lenient sentence.
He's your typical intelligence agency informant.
We need someone to inform and someone we don't like. Round up the usual suspects, and this guy is exactly who you expect.
Yeah. Sigurdur had volunteered for WikiLeaks in 2010 and 2011. During this time, he repeatedly used his position to enrich himself at the expense of the organisation.
Now, Julian Assange, I don't know if most people are aware, but they took him to court in Australia when he was a teenager for hacking. But I don't think he, and that's a whole nother thing. Most hackers, especially the ones that get a lot of public visibility, they always give them very extreme sentences for literally just hacking a server. I mean, that's a whole nother story. But that's Assange is basically a hacker trying to get to the truth on what the U.S. government was doing militarily, at the policy level, what have you.
And its credibility. According to Stundin, his activity in cooperation with prolific hacker turned FBI informant resulted in a denial of service, DDoS attacks against Icelandic websites and government institutions in 2011, which were likely conducted by the FBI itself in an attempt to implicate Julian Assange in criminal activities beyond his journalistic career.
Whose speculation is that?
This is Stundin, this Icelandic news.
We've got sliding into it in the chat. Thanks for hanging out. Wow, you got a lot of stuff going on here. Sliding into it says, I'd say they don't want it done with as long as it's clear. You will be treated like this if you take a stand publicly against the powers that be, aka the cult. It benefits them, keeping others well aware of what awaits them if they take a stand. Yeah, definitely. But it also comes down to numbers. You have to be, if you're publicly going against this, you have to be someone that has millions of followers, right? You have to be somebody that the powers that be, the government, whatever you want to call it, you can come out and you can say whatever you want, as long as you don't have a large following. For the most part, they're not going to waste their time sold graphic. We have somebody from Twitch. Does anyone need graphic design? Anyway, I'm working on some graphic designs with Jacob, who helped me found Variant News. I'm working with his nephew on some stuff, but sold graphic on Twitch. I'll check out your graphic design stuff. Might want to do something, but thanks for posting that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of independent streamers are talking out. They are getting, covering what's not being said in the news. But I really, the main issue with that is that the federal government, they're not going to see you as a threat until you have, something like Joe Rogan has, or if you have a big, powerful platform on social media, a lot of followers, that's when the alarm bells go off, and they will definitely come after you. You saw a lot of that on DLive January 6th. I don't have documented evidence of it, but it definitely sounds like the U.S. federal government was talking with DLive. But we need to be able to stream what we want. We have the right to do that in the United States, so we have to continue to do it. And obviously, you're going to be all right as long as you don't have... If you're not up there, if you don't have millions of followers, you should be all right. But, which makes me wonder, what's the point of I mean, that's really how they keep that's how they don't want any kind of mass movement. So anyone that has a large following, oh my God, and then that's the way they turn it around. They make that person look like Joe Rogan is a cult. You know, he's part of a cult, or whoever it is. It's all projection when they're the like the U.S. federal government. That's the enemy.
But I can certainly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
In the same year, when relations soured between Forderson and WikiLeaks due to his embezzlement of the organisation's money, he turned to the FBI to become an informant against Assange. This relationship would last for several months, during which he would simultaneously become a target of Icelandic authorities. And I'm quoting directly here. Forderson's charges were piling up against Forderson for massive fraud, forgeries and theft on the one hand, and for sexual violations against underage boys he had tricked or forced into sexual acts on the other, explains Stundin. According to a psychiatric assessment presented to the courts, Forderson was diagnosed as a sociopath, incapable of remorse, but still criminally culpable for his actions. He was assessed to be able to understand the basic difference between right and wrong. He just did not seem to care.
I'm going to finish up with this video and move on to Jackson Hinkle. But the Lotus Eaters are pretty good. I don't know if anybody's familiar with them in the chat. Is anybody familiar with the Lotus Eaters? I think they're pretty good. And also good to get somebody from the UK with their perspective, considering Assange is perhaps still on UK soil. We don't know. Assange could be in the US. So this is The Dive with Jackson Hinkle on Odyssey. Definitely check it out. It's a 35-minute video. I'm just going to do a little bit.
Spanish spy firm to go.
We can go from the beginning because he kind of goes into the whole U.S. perspective of this and U.S. social media, Julian Assange, and what have you.
Has authorized the extradition of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to the United States to be tried under the Espionage Act in a case which seeks to set a legal precedent for the prosecution of any publisher or journalist anywhere in the world. So I was listening to a Tucker Carlson lecture of all people today, and I heard him say something that really made me think. He paraphrased a quote from Winston Churchill, a nation that forgets its past has no future. Now, I discuss here on this show quite a bit about how the current, establishment of liberals is a power-hungry establishment of deep state hacks who are trying to erase our past. Why are they doing this? They're doing this for one simple reason, because they don't want you to remember the past. They don't want you to remember who the villains are and who the heroes are throughout history. They want you to think that, you can look at current events, right? They want you to think that the Azov Nazis in Ukraine are good, worth supporting, and also worth sending $54 billion to. That's a clear picture of how the liberals right now are trying to erase even recent history to try and manipulate, global events and power, right? And the thing that I'll say about liberals and neoconservatives as well, right? Anyone who's truly aligned with the deep state, the CIA, the State Department, these are George Soros aligned organizations.
I mean, deep state. I'm throwing in the FBI into the whole deep state thing. FBI is just the public facing. It's more accessible than the NSA or the CIA. The NSA and CIA we know very little about. WikiLeaks with Julian Assange. As I mentioned in a past stream, there's Jacob Appelbaum who. The videos are still on YouTube. I don't know. They may eventually be taking them down. I think I downloaded them. I've got to make sure. But Jacob Appelbaum went through all the different ways the surveillance NSA surveils U.S. citizens. So there's a lot there, and it just the Democrats. The Democrats have allowed wokeism, and it's not just Democrats. It's spreading everywhere. Does anyone else notice? I can't find. It's really hard now to find even a company out there that's big that's not supporting the Ukraine war. We've really taken everything to the next level. Before social media, before it was popular, it wasn't as easy to have all these companies and organizations and entities come on to the status quo or whatever that the U.S. government wants everyone to follow. But it's absolutely amazing. I was on my bank, the bank that I use today, right up at the top, Ukraine. We support the war in Ukraine. I mean, for fuck's sake, the Hive OS, the goddamn open source software that I use to mine crypto, supports Ukraine. I mean, it's just everywhere you go. It's like, what do you mean you don't support Ukraine? Well, guess what? I don't support the goddamn war in Ukraine. And why the hell are we giving them all this money? Our deficit is through the roof. We're never going to be able. We're passing the point of no return. That's what it seems like financially, and we keep sending money to these. There is that branch of the military, and I forget the name. He discusses it here. Whatever. They're supposed to be Nazis or whatever. Yes, that's a small portion. There's a portion of those fighters in this war, but it's not like everybody that's fighting is a Nazi. It's just this whatever sect or whatever you want to call it, which is a small minority, but it's an important point to make. They call Trump and everybody else on the woke left Nazis, but we're actually supporting Nazis in this Ukraine war. The absurdity of it, and how you still can't awaken these woke weirdos again when you give them the truth. I think wokeism is reaching an apex. It's imploding upon itself. It's going to eat itself. It's been doing that, and maybe I'm hoping there will be some kind of traumatic event to wokeism where it's its death knell, and you see that decline of wokeism. Unfortunately, it's not something that we're going to be able to just eliminate from human consciousness. It's not going to just go away in the blink of an eye because it's so useful in manipulating people. That's the problem. But there will be a decline in wokeism. I mean, it's golden. The golden era of wokeism is gone, and it has dark days ahead.
The FBI. What I'll say about them is, if you ever confront them with an opposing view, they rarely, if ever, try to argue against your views. Try to put up a serious rebuttal, tried to challenge the ideas, the substance of what you have to say. We've seen it many times when I debate people like Vosh or Destiny or Sam Cedar here on this very channel. Instead, they react with a emotional response. They try to call you names. You're a racist. You're a Nazi. You're whatever. They don't actually engage with what you have to say. In the case of Julian Assange, a man who's exposed some of the biggest secrets that the deep state holds, they didn't even do that.
Sliding into it has some comments here. The Federal Reserve legally creates money, then created trillions, took it, gave it to themselves, and purchased the controlling stock interests of all corporations. It is that simple. When you see it, your perspective changes completely, and that's something, obviously, I've been looking at a lot in my live streams. Are we going to keep kicking the goddamn can down the road with this whole... It's already... I mean, you can't just keep printing money out of thin air. Federal Reserve just prints money. The whole quantitative easing, all it is just corporate welfare to the banks and other corporations. They buy into the existing corporate monopolies, the mega corporations, and... obviously a topic for another stream, but things are going to have... I mean, with the U.S. federal government, who was Montegraph? I think his name. Yeah, Montegraph on YouTube. Monty or whatever. I found him through Amy Lane's streams. I really like his streams. He's on YouTube mainly, I think. But he covers a lot. He covers a lot of about the Federal Reserve and CBDC. He thinks CBDC is going to come out next year, 2023, first quarter, probably around February. He may be right. I mean, I just don't see. I don't think the U.S. government, they can wait any longer. Companies are starting to come out with their own CBDCs, and if they don't do something, and will they at least try to create a CBDC with sound financial logic behind it, right? Or is it just going to be a CBDC that the Federal Reserve can create whenever it wants, whenever it needs more digital coins? It just prints them, creates them. I would imagine that's what they're going to try to do. And unfortunately, if that's the case, we're probably going to be at war with China, Russia, someone, sooner rather than later, if that's the case.
Their response was
I mean, in theory, we're already at war with Russia. I mean, we're already aiding the Ukrainian opposition. You have U.S. mercenary soldiers, U.S. citizens that are mercenaries fighting in Ukraine. Some of them have been captured and are going to be killed, executed, whatever you want to call it, in Russian courts. If you're a U.S. citizen or a soldier, that's the last place you want to be right now is in Russia. But they are capturing U.S. mercenary soldiers in this Ukraine war. And I believe the UK has either they're planning to execute him or he's already been executed. A UK soldier that's a mercenary. Yeah, I believe he was married, a Ukrainian woman, moved to Ukraine, and has been fighting, but he's a British citizen. I believe still. Probably has already been executed.
Simple as locking him up in prison. More on that later. But Julian Assange, his extradition to the United States was just approved by UK Home Secretary Priti Patel, where he will face 17, I believe, charges of the Espionage Act, violations of the Espionage Act, if it's approved to extradite him to the United States. And if he's found guilty on these charges, which, given the jury, the court he'll be tried in, rather, he probably will. It's not going to be fair. It's not going to be just. It's not going to be a jury of his peers or anything like that. No, he will, and he will face 175 years in prison. This is a man who, again, did nothing wrong, violated no laws. I mean, he's in a
So taking a look at the chat, Miser is in the chat, and I believe posted 2 caret symbols. I'm not sure what that means, but thank you for posting that. Sliding into it says it's beyond welfare. It's a multi-layered attack ongoing. Looks like you're referencing corporate welfare right there, I guess. Track and trace CBDC may not from very start, but it will turn out. The CBDC, if they release it by next year, they probably won't have great tracking capabilities to it. But from what I know, MIT in Boston has been working with the U.S. federal government on a CBDC. All that I've read or known about is that they'll disclose is that they're reaching a very, very high transaction count. So they're not using a traditional blockchain technology like Bitcoin. Although from what I've read, there is at least one Bitcoin developer that may still work with Bitcoin, but came onto the MIT team with the U.S. federal government to work on a CBDC, and they're able to make, handle millions of transactions per second or what have you. They've broke great ground on that. I don't think they'll publicly announce that they have technology in place to track the CBDC. They just don't want people thinking about that. So, but maybe we might be able to find some kind of information on that. But the CBDC has to be, U.S. CBDC has to be around the corner. Sliding into it says they tend to require a verified bank account for the digital currency, aka a biometric ID, digital ID. That is very possible. Sliding into it says it is the B system, and Miser says indeed in the chat. I think when you start getting into biometric ID and bank accounts and the CBDCs, you can't ignore also automation technologies for automation are removing jobs for humans. Are we reaching some kind of point where they're going to come out with some kind of universal basic income, and then they may implement that with biometric ID, some kind of digital ID? So if you want the money, you're going to have to they're going to have to verify your identity. I would imagine they would do that, or if you were getting money from the government. But there's a lot of weirdos on the Democratic side who want anybody to be able to vote. That's another thing. Being able to vote. New York City did pass a law, whatever, I don't know exactly a law or a statute, whatever the hell it was, that allows illegal aliens or non-citizens to vote in New York City. That has been struck down by the New York State, Supreme Court, and they ruled it unconstitutional. I'm going to get some follow-up on that. Sliding into it says it's not needed. They created the atmosphere situation via their actions, aka create a problem to implement the solution. Everything that's bought and sold legally off books will be labeled terrorism. We'll have to see. I don't truly believe they'll be able to eliminate all crypto, but the industry is going to consolidate. You're just not going to have as many crypto platforms. That's all going to wane year by year, and it's all going to come down to just a few major players, which actually will be good because there's too many criminal elements, all these scam. I'm constantly getting, like on Discord, you constantly get all these idiots trying to get you to do pump and dump crypto scams and stuff like that. Just like anything online, if you're purchasing anything online, there's criminal elements that are exploiting that. And because crypto is not regulated, it's anything goes. There has to be some kind of regulation that at least protects average crypto investor. Perfect example is, on the exchanges, although maybe we're better off with crypto just not promoting exchanges and trying to do as much as we can at the wallet level. So I always have the option, I can send crypto to any of my friends, wallet to wallet, and the government should not be involved in that. I should not be taxed on that transaction. The government should not have to know about that. So that remains to be seen how hard they're going to press.
Australian citizen, for Christ's sake, and he's now going to be prosecuted in the U.S. for violating our espionage laws? What is this? He's not a U.S. citizen. He doesn't have any right to protect the secrets of the United States. So why is he facing 175 years in prison? Well, that's a good question. It's a question that liberals don't want to answer, and neoconservatives don't want to answer. When Julian Assange decided to leak some of the deepest, darkest secrets of the CIA, Mike Pompeo got very upset. So upset.
I've got to get this video actually loaded. I'm not... audio is only coming through, so sorry about that.
That he got Donald Trump to go along with the idea of beginning an extradition case against Julian Assange and extraditing him to the United States. It was a pretty big project to undertake. I mean, we saw that the deep state oligarchs were trying to go after Julian Assange for years. They tried to pin fake rape charges against the man that never amounted to anything because they were fake. They tried to extradite him to, I believe, Switzerland first. I think that was correct. Over these charges, and it was fake. And Julian Assange went into the Ecuadorian embassy because he was guaranteed a level of political asylum if he were to stay in this, Ecuadorian embassy. He stayed there. His privacy rights were violated. His Client.
Just want to, because we're getting into, in the chat, we're getting into, just bank accounts, biometric stuff, tracking of crypto. I'm actively working on a crypto wallet for a company here in New York area. We're getting close to like a beta and an actual public beta testing of the app. But I'm very much involved with crypto at the wallet level, and that's something I want to see grow. So I am actively doing wallet transactions live on my live streams here with Variant News. DLive's obviously one of the better places to catch the streams. I'm also working on Variant News .live, which is going to be my own Variant News' own platform. I'm going to be working with Greg the Canuck, Jacob, who helped me found Variant News, and others to get content for that. But I'm actively doing transactions live, crypto wallet to wallet transactions live. I'm staking crypto in my wallets like Exodus wallet. I am staking Solana in Algorand. So you have a lot of options with crypto, and if you're in the chat and you're interested, you have a crypto wallet, or if you need help getting one, I can help you. I don't charge money for that. I'm just looking to build a community, and I'm actively doing test transactions wallet to wallet of real crypto. Be doing a lot of it with AnyWord, and I'm looking for others that are interested, that are crypto enthusiasts, that would like to help me test crypto transactions. So let me know in the chat if you're interested in doing something like that. I'm gonna play a little bit more of this, and I'm gonna be moving on to some other stories that I have in the queue here, and got to end the stream. I don't know if there's much daylight. There's a little bit of daylight left. And I'd like to actually get more of my lawn cut, and I don't like to do it during the day when it's hot, so I might end the stream soon. You got to mow your lawn, right?
Client attorney privileges were violated on numerous occasions, such as, but not limited to, the occasions in which a Spanish spy firm that was working in tandem with Sheldon Adelson and Mike Pompeo were trying to figure out, what he was working on, what his plans for defense were, how he was going to try to avoid this extradition. They were violating his basic privacy rights. They were spying on him. In fact, they even got this Spanish spy firm to go into the trash bins that were left outside the Ecuadorian embassy, which showed the Spanish spy firm that Julian Assange had fathered 2 children while he was in the Ecuadorian embassy. He was holed up there for several years, I believe 7 years, all because if he were to step foot on UK soil outside of the Ecuadorian embassy, he would have been arrested immediately. Times changed, and the leadership in Ecuador was replaced with a Western subservient leader. They gave that Western subservient leader massive IMF loans that indebted Ecuador. And in return for that, Ecuador decided to allow UK authorities to go into the Ecuadorian embassy and take Julian Assange out illegally. He's now been sitting in Belmarsh prison, which, you don't remember, Belmarsh prison is the prison in James Bond where they keep the,
There it is, Belmarsh prison. I was thinking of that earlier in the stream. That's where he is now. I mean, completely insane. Out of a James Bond movie.
Mayor of all evil who's trying to kill the entire global population, right? They keep that guy in Belmarsh prison in that movie, James Bond, second to last one. And now they have Julian Assange there. It's insane.
Right, because U.S. federal government wants you to believe that Julian Assange is the greatest villain ever, when the exact opposite is true. Assange, I got to find the documentary I was watching recently of Assange. I'll find it. I also want to take a look at, watching some documentaries in full with private viewing parties. Everybody's interested in the chat. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff like on DLive. They don't want you showing full movies beginning to end, and there's all that razzmatazz. But I really want to start looking into private viewings for stuff. So let me know in the chat. I'm gonna do a little bit more of this, and then I'm gonna. So I'm bumbling and stumbling today. We've been talking about the Federal Reserve in the chat, and I looked at Mark Moss. He has yet another update video on the Federal Reserve, so I'm gonna finish the stream with that, with the Mark Moss video. And I believe there's a big lie that he talks about coming from the Federal Reserve. I don't know, would the Federal Reserve lie?
They've had him there for years. They tried to kill him while he was in the Belmarsh prison. They locked him in a corner of the prison that was the COVID case corner of the prison during the pandemic. Julian Assange has underlying health conditions, by the way. They have tortured him. They have abused him. Julian Assange has Asperger's. And UN Special Rapporteur on Torture and the Enjoyment of Human Rights actually went in to the Belmarsh prison just a few years ago with a clinical psychiatrist and found that, yes, Belmarsh prison officials had been torturing Julian Assange. Again, all because liberals couldn't take the fact that they exposed his secrets. They exposed their war crimes. He exposed their illegal corruption. He exposed everything that they were doing that pisses everyone like you.
I mean, Hillary Clinton, there was some stuff WikiLeaks came out with, her mail server, things along those lines. So, and Hillary Clinton is an absolutely despicable human being. I mean, what she did, she single-handedly is responsible for what happened in Libya. I mean, obviously the blame is put onto Obama because he was commander-in-chief, but that was little Hillary Clinton's escapade. I mean, she was laughing and make light of the fact when Gaddafi was killed in the streets. I mean, it was extremely brutal. I saw the video from that. The man was executed in the streets of Libya, and Hillary Clinton laughed it off. And then you had, that was what brought on the massive migration of migrants, illegal aliens, whatever you want to call them. I mean, from Africa. People from all over Africa were coming up then through Libya because Gaddafi had kept everything in check. And Gaddafi made one of the biggest mistakes you make, and that's he was going on about, making African gold, a currency, Africa. He was very proud of the continent of Africa, what have you. He wanted the equivalent of what the U.S. petrodollar is. He wanted to create a new movement in that area of the world in Africa, and that's probably got him killed more than anything else. I'm gonna move over to the Mark Moss video. I just want to hear the name of this prison because I'm gonna look it up.
Crimes. He exposed their, all because liberals with a clinical psychiatrist in fact has Asperger's, and UN Special Rapporteur on Torture and the Enjoyment of Human Rights actually went in to the Belmarsh prison just a few years ago with a clinical psychiatrist and found that, yes, Belmarsh prison officials had been torturing Julian Assange. Again, all because liberals couldn't take the fact that they exposed his secrets. They exposed their war crimes. He exposed their illegal corruption. He exposed.
All right, I just want to bring up this news article. Julian Assange passes 1,000 days in Belmarsh prison, dubbed Britain's Guantanamo Bay. Wednesday marks the grim milestone of 1,000 days of Julian Assange's continuous incarceration in Britain's maximum security Belmarsh prison. This is kind of insane because and they throw him in prison, but he's never stood trial in the U.S. for the leaking, for what he did with WikiLeaks. So this is kind of insane that they could just throw him in prison. No court proceedings whatsoever. In that time, the WikiLeaks publisher and journalist has only left the foreboding prison walls located on a windswept plain on the bleak outskirts of London to be brought before British courts that have trampled on his democratic and legal rights. So I'm going to take a look more on Belmarsh prison. and it's being dubbed Britain's Guantanamo Bay. All right, I'm going to now switch over to a Mark Moss video. I'm going to end the stream after that. So,
is this the biggest lie from the Federal Reserve yet?
Mark Moss video coming up right here. He talks about some of the things the Federal Reserve has said. Going to look at the truthfulness of those statements, see what they are telling us today, what to expect with our retirement accounts, look at charts and graphs that tell us what's really going on. There has been, Mark Moss talks a lot about the history of currencies. There was Great Britain before U.S. There was the Dutch, Spain, I believe, is on the list. There were a few others, but there have been resets in currency. Like currencies have been reset. So unfortunately, that could mean millions of people's. This is already happening in China. It's happened in other countries around the world. In the U.S., I guess you could argue, obviously the Great Depression, there was things similar to that. But are we headed in the U.S. with some kind of financial reset where, the dollar becomes so worthless that, whatever you have tied to U.S. dollars just goes to zero? Would they do that? Some kind of event like that coming. But this video is 30 minutes. I'm going to probably just do the first 5 to 10 minutes.
Now, you wouldn't expect our leaders to lie to us, would you? I mean, the president, central bankers, the Supreme Court judges, you trust them all to tell us exactly what they're saying, right? Well, you better believe that every single word the Federal Reserve says, the Federal Reserve that controls the economies of both the United States and the world, they're busy telling us what they're doing, what to expect, and how to prepare. And you better believe that every single word they say is measured and it matters. So they'd be careful with what they're saying, right? Well, in this video, I'm going to break down some of the things that they've said. We're going to look at the truthfulness of them. Then we're going to see what are they telling us today, what to expect with our own retirement accounts, and then we're going to look at the charts and the graphs that tell us what's really going on and what we need to be doing to be prepared for what's really happening, not just what they're telling us is happening. So let's go. All right, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mark Moss, and I make these videos to change the way you think about money because almost everything you've learned is wrong, and now today, almost everything they're telling us is wrong. If you're going off of what they're telling you, it's going to be bad for you. So we're going to look at the actual data behind it so we can be better prepared for what's really going on. Now, I do want to tell you real quick before we jump into this, I got a lot of charts and graphs we're going to cover, but I am going to have about an hour presentation I'm going to do next week where I'm going to have all types of charts. We're going to dig in super deep so we can see the factual information of what's really happening. I'm going to break down what I'm selling, some things that I'm buying, what I'm waiting for to see before I move in bigger, what my portfolio looks like, so much more. And then, of course, I'm going to do a live question and answer. So a time you can get with me to ask me all the questions that you have about all this information. You don't want to miss it. There's a link down below. It's the most important time. They're lying to you. You need to see the real information. Check out that link down below. Join me live. And I'll show you the charts and you can ask me questions. All right, now getting into this video. Can we trust our leaders? Now, this is somewhat of a rhetorical question. Of course, the answer is no, right? Or maybe you still think it's yes. So let's take a look at that. So let's look at a couple things. Now, we're specifically talking about the central bankers, the leaders. I'm not going to dig into all the politicians. We'd be here for days. All right, but when we're talking about the politicians and the central bankers, so we had Ben Bernanke. He was in charge of Federal Reserve. Today, it's Jay Powell in charge of the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the U.S. Before that, it was Ben Bernanke back in 2008. Now, you might remember this if you're old enough, and if you're young, you might not remember. But as you can see right here, January 17th of 2008, Bernanke, the head of the Federal Reserve, said the Fed is not forecasting a recession. So in 2007, the wheels were already starting to come off the
I can't remember who it was. It was a woman. And nowadays, they want us to believe you can't even define what a woman is. But I can't remember her name. I want to think that it's Yellen, but I don't think it was Yellen. It was someone else. But they basically said, I can't remember if they're treasurer or what have you, but that there will never, she believed there would never be another recession. We'd never have another economic downturn. And she was basically trying to guarantee that there never would be another downturn. It's just a lot of smoke and mirrors. They want you to believe in their system, right? And invest in it. But there's this movement, this counter movement to it. I mean, the petrodollar is becoming more and more worthless every day. And I definitely do have some real concerns. Are they going to do some kind of wide-scale mass reset of the U.S. dollar? And is that going to affect millions and millions of bank accounts? That's something I want to look. I want to look into the historical perspective of these things, whether it happened in the U.S. or in other countries where Mark Moss does a lot of stuff like that. But I want to see what I can collect on that, just to get an idea of what it might look like if it were to come to bear.
Bus. Everybody already knew it was going to happen. And Bernanke said, no, everything's good. The Fed doesn't see any recession coming. It's all good. Clear road ahead. Keep going. Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke said that even though the U.S. economy is facing a difficult combination of circumstances, the Fed is not foreseeing a recession. So this is important to understand. I'm going to break this down. Look at what they're saying. Even though the U.S. economy is facing a difficult combination. So I'm going to show you what they're saying today. Even though we're facing a difficult conversation, they're not forecasting a recession. The U.S., quote, the U.S. economy remains extraordinarily resilient. The U.S. economy is strong, sort of like the White House press secretary saying that they feel the economy is strong.
All right, so globally, really, the world is, I mean, so many countries have put their money behind the U.S. petrodollar. You have Japan buying the treasuries, all that stuff. CCP in China has vested heavily. But we're in very uncertain financial times worldwide, and U.S. dollars hanging on by a thread. And people don't know, the people that have lots of money, they don't know where the hell to put it. Unless you're the elite of the elite, you're a billionaire, what have you. So it's, I don't know how, we might be in some kind of transition for a long time, but if the U.S. comes out with a CBDC by next year, there'll at least be more clarity. I don't know what it's going to look like, but the U.S. dollar is still strong, but China and Russia have made so much progress in weakening the U.S. dollar. So what is the U.S. federal government going to do? They have to have something in store. Obviously, you're not going to hear it from Bernanke. I mean, this happens over and over again every time. They're saying it right now. They're saying right now that everything is fine financially. The U.S. is still strong, but we'll have to see. The CBDC is really the key, unless there's some kind of event, China or Russia, maybe Russia escalates even more. You could have nuclear war. You could have China, CCP invade Taiwan, which, whether you think we should support Taiwan or not, it's going to affect us. We would have extreme financial consequences of that. I personally am of the opinion, why should we allow the Chinese to take Taiwan? But maybe we're just better off relying on intel, and maybe, I don't know, this sounds like a crazy idea, but having new startup companies that are similar to Intel, that are semiconductor companies, and having us produce those CPUs and GPUs on U.S. soil, instead of allowing Taiwan to capture 75% of the silicon market, 75% of all electronics. That's the future of the world's economy. We really need to start doing more here in North America working with Mexico and Canada, and just forget about the rest of the world.
Strong and ready to take on all this inflation. We're going to take a look at that. Don't worry, we'll show you the charts. And it says that growth will be worse this year. I mean, sure, we see some problems, but we're not going to have a recession. Of course, that was right before the GFC, which is the great financial crash, the global financial crash that brought down the entire banking system. So we'll take a look at it. So that was that. Now, did we trust him? Did he lie, or was he incompetent? A question I'm going to keep asking you. We have Janet Yellen. She was in charge of the Federal Reserve before, after Bernanke, and then she's now in charge of the Treasury. So here we have her in 2017 saying, I don't see a financial crisis occurring again in our life.
All right, maybe that's what I was remembering. Maybe it was Yellen, but I was thinking it was somebody else. But that's what Yellen said. That's what she said on June 27th, 2017. She said, I don't see a financial crisis occurring in our lifetimes. I mean, she's not talking like, oh, in the next 5 to 10 years in the economic cycle. She said, in our lifetimes. How could you make a statement like that when historically that's all we've had is market manipulation for the entire history, going back 100 years, 200 years. But let's just say the last 100, 150 years. It's all it's been is these up and down cycles, massive amounts of corruption and whales and large people like George Soros and billionaires, what have you, manipulating the markets. That's all it's been. And the average investor is always getting screwed.
Lifetimes. We're never going to have another recession in our lifetimes? That's what she said in 2017. Now, we've had a couple of them. One at the end of 2018, of course, the March 2020 crash, and then holy moly, what's going on right now? So this is who is in charge of our financial system. We don't see it happening in our lifetimes. Of course, the Federal Reserve right now today, this is what they're saying now. This is dated a couple of days ago, June 28th. The Federal Reserve President, Jay Powell, pushes back on the recession fears. Hey, hang on, don't get fears. The economy is strong. Does that sound sort of like what Bernanke said? The economy was strong, right?
All right, there's some sunlight left, but it's disappearing over the hill here where my house is. So I'll get my lawn done, or at least most of it. We're going to end the stream. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. We had a bunch of people hanging out, especially in the chat. We had sliding into it. He was sliding into the chat today. And we also had Miser in the chat. Didgeridoo made an appearance in the chat earlier today. And thank you, everybody, for the D-Live Lemons. I appreciate that. I'm looking at getting things started up on variantnews.live on a basic level. I'm going to be accepting crypto on that platform. Miser says in the chat, thanks, Variant News. So, yeah, I definitely got some plans for variantnews.live. I'm looking for content. If you're a streamer, definitely reach out to me here on chat. And also there's, I'll put the contact link in there. You can contact me there. I'm also on Twitter. Links in the layout here. Variant_news on Twitter. But you can contact me at those places. If you're interested, I'm looking to build content. I mean, I've got a lot of ideas. There's a lot of technical work that has to be done. If you're a developer or someone that's a developer, doesn't matter what, as long as they can code JavaScript, Java, Python, whatever, Rust, C++, C, whatever. But yeah, I'm looking to pull together some developers, especially at the community level to start, and then if we can take it further from there, that could definitely be done. But I'm going to end the stream. Thanks everybody for your support. I'll see you on the other side of things. Be safe. If you're in the U.S., if you're in North America, try to stay cool because it's been unseasonably hot all through the spring, and now we're in summer, and it's still where I'm at, it usually doesn't get very warm, and we've had summers that have felt like spring to most people the entire summer. And this summer, it's already, I mean, we've already had many 90-degree high days. Kind of crazy. And it really saps your energy. All that heat saps your energy. Drink water. Be healthy, and I'll see you on the next stream. And get the outro going.
My message is that we'll be watching you.